All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Fans ready. All right, so how's it going, everybody? Welcome to We Do Tech, and also to this crazy build. Now, this is probably one of the most expensive builds that I have done so far. It's around $3,000 plus. So I still have to calculate some of the stuff to actually do the full price, but it's a beastly system. Now, as you guys can see, I already did the build. Everything's inside and it looks just so good. What's it around? The 12 fans, I believe, 6 at the top, 3 plus 2 at the front, 3 at the bottom, 2 here at the back, plus 3 for the GPU if you want to count that, and 1 for the power supply. So it's just fully kitted out. Now, this is going to be a showpiece for Cooler Monster here in South Africa in their newest stores. So if you're in Sandton and you possibly go visit their store, you'll probably see this build there. So definitely go check that out. Now, in this video, I'm going to go over all of the parts that I use because this is a collaboration between Cooler Monster and Gigabyte. So then I'm going to show you guys the build process, and then finally I'm going to go over all of the benchmarks because I'm going to test the system in 1080p, 1440p, and also 4K. But now this is not the only build that I'm doing. So this is the HAV 700. I'm also doing a similar build in the HAV 500, just with a different GPU, different CPU, and so on. So we're also going to see how actually the two systems performs in a different video, and also just show you guys how both of them look, because both of them look pretty cool. But now that's pretty much it. So now let's go over all of the components individually, and then also get into the benchmarks later on. So let's get into that. Alrighty, so starting off with the first product, we have our motherboard, which is the Aorus X570S Pro AX. Now, this is more of a mid-high range board, and it costs around $270 or 7,300 Rand for here in South Africa. Now, as for memory, it does go up to 128 gigs and speeds of 5,400 megahertz. So pretty close to DDR5 anyway. Now, also it does have 4 PCI Express slots, 3 of them being a full size and 1 of them being a 1X. Also, you do get 3 PCI Express 4 M.2 slots, so plenty of storage options as there. And if you want to overclock it, is a AMD system. You do have a proper 12 plus 2 phase VRMS setup, and we're gonna pair it up with a pretty beefy CPU. So we'll definitely need that if we want to get a bit more horsepower out of our CPU. And then speaking of CPU, for our build here, we do have the Ryzen 9 5900X with 12 cores, 24 threads, and clocks up to 4.8 gigahertz. And it can even go higher than that if you overclock it as well. So not gonna be a problem for anything that you do, whether it's production work, whether it's gaming, streaming, or gaming and streaming even. It's not gonna be a problem for that. Now, it's not the cheapest, but it's also actually not too expensive. It's retailing for around $400 or 7,900 Rand. But again, 12 cores, 24 threads, 4.8 gigahertz. And then next up for our memory, we have the Aorus RGB memory. Now, this is a single kit of 2 8 gigs, so a total of 16 gigs. Of course, you would like a bit more, and if you build a system like this, you can, but this is all of the parts that we were sent. Now, also, this does run at 3,733 megahertz, which is enough for our system here, but of course, our motherboard can go higher than that. Now, I have already done a full review on this one if you want to check that out with all of the RGB lighting and so on, but it's a pretty nice kit. I even have one of my own, my full kit also, just a bit faster also. Now, as for pricing, it does retail for around $110 or 2,000 Rand per pack. Now, also, it does come with a nice sleek black brushed aluminum finish, which does look really nice, and does have a 12 RGB lighting nodes that you can control through the RGB Fusion software. And then next up for our SSD, we have the Aorus Gen 4 SSD. So this is a 500 gig NVMe PCI Express 4 SSD. Now, of course, you can go higher if you wanted to, but it's definitely not a bad option to start out with. And I actually also own one of these myself, and they're really nice. Now, pricing wise, they are around $100 or 1,550 Rand, which again isn't bad for a PCI Express Gen 4 SSD. Now, you do have 2 options for these. You have the one without the heat spreader that we have, and then also one with a pretty beefy heat spreader. But honestly, you don't need the heat spreader because usually your motherboard will have heat spreaders covering the M.2 slots anyway, so that's not going to be a problem. Now, the nice thing about these are, I'm also going to benchmark this one, but it does reach speeds up to 5,000 megabytes a second and writes up to 2,500. All right, and then next up we have the HAF 700 case, which is just a massive piece of, honestly, perfect engineering. Now, usually a problem with cases is that they don't really build inside the case beforehand, and there's not a lot of space for all of the components. Especially, you can put in a ton of fans, but there's usually no space at the back or so on. There's no problem here. There's only so much space available. Again, I have around like 12 plus fans inside here, and it's not a problem at all for the system. Pricing wise, it's not the cheapest case available. It's around $650 or around 10,000 Rand plus. Currently, I haven't seen any pricing for here in South Africa, but it's going to be around there. But you're going to get this case if you want to go all out. The HAF series are the high airflow cases where you get plenty of airflow throughout the case. You have two 200mm fans at the front. You do get two 120mm RGB fans and also one at the bottom here that's along the side of the case. And then of course we included 8 additional fans along with our AIO coolers, 3 fans as well. So fully kitted out. Now with all of these fans, luckily there is actually enough controllers and fan hubs and so on that you don't need to really plug anything additionally on the board, which I thought is going to be a problem, but luckily not. And you can control everything alongside all together, which is really cool. And then also at the front, you can probably see that RGB Alliance, which is a bit of a different design. I haven't really seen it on a lot of other cases, so it's a bit more interesting, just instead of a tempered glass front panel. And then also you're going to get a proper airflow there, along with the, again, two 200mm fans there. It's a mesh at the front between all of those RGB lines, so it does push in a lot of cool air because of the entire front section there. Now the side is tempered glass, at the back it's just normal, but it's plenty of airflow there, and it's just a ton of space. And then finally, of course, you do have your display there at the front, which I just going to have my logo there, but you can actually display your system information, temperatures, clock speeds, usage. You can even put in your own video key that you want to play, a GIF or whatever. There's a ton of options that you can actually display on there. All of that inside the Cooler Master software. It's actually pretty cool, and also something a bit different that you don't really see, I don't think I've seen on other cases. Now, if you want to see a bit more of a breakdown on the case, I have actually done a separate video of the case, all of the insides and so on, but this is now with the full build, so I'll leave a link in the video description for that as well. All right, and then next up we have our power supply, which I would say is a bit overkill, but that's what Cooler Master is saying over, and they're just showing all of the high-end products here. So this is the Cooler Master V1200 Platinum. So this is a top of the range power supply, and again, you don't need to go that high, but they're showing off what they can actually do, and it's really impressive. But it's fully modular. It does have a 7-year warranty. It does have a full 100% Japanese capacitors, and it does retail for around $360 or 4,000 Rand. Also, it does have a 135mm FDB silent fan that does have a switch that you can switch between auto and hybrid mode, and it does also have its silent operations. Then next up for our cooler, we have the Cooler Master Master Liquid ML360 Illusion. So the Illusion name comes from the transparent pump head here, which you can actually see from the sides and also from the front, which does look pretty cool. Now you do have 3 fans as well, because this is a 360mm, which are mounted at the front. You can rather mount it at the top, but I do think it looks a bit cooler at the front here in our system. But then those come also with the MF120 Halo fans, which you have RGB rings around the side as well, instead of just the fan hub. So it does look pretty cool. You have 3 fans there, along with the 2 additional 200mm fans at the front. So plenty of air being pushed through our AIO to cool our CPU. As for our pricing, this unit is retailing for $190 or 2,500 Rand. And then you do also get an option for a 240mm and 280. We are using the 240mm in the half 500 build. And then finally for our GPU, we have the Gigabyte RTX 3080 Gaming OC, which I have actually done a review on when they launched. So if you want to check that out, you can as well. But luckily, the pricing for these have gone down. Not entirely full MSRP yet, but they do retail for around $900 or 18,500 Rand for here in South Africa. So closer to that $800 MSRP wise. Now, of course, you do have the 3080 Ti now as well, alongside the 3090 and 3090 Ti. But I do still think that this is a pretty good option if you want to go just 1440p and 4K, not pay too much extra, and also play 4K at 60 FPS. Most games will go higher than that, especially with a DLSS. We'll see how that performs, but it's just a good all-rounder option. And I actually have the Vision one of these, the white version, and it performs really, really well. But of course, we're gonna see how they actually perform just right after I actually benchmark the system. So let's quickly get into that, but that is all of the parts and everything. So if you want to build something similar, you can, but of course you can also switch some of the components out as well to save a bit of cash, or even go higher if you wanted to. Oh yeah, and just before I forget, so we have our 8 Singular Flow 120 ARGB fans, which was a bit of a struggle to fit everything inside because it's just so much that I needed to actually connect, but everything is in and it does look just awesome. So full RGB around the front, the hub there, and it just looks really, really cool. So most fans I have actually installed in a case. So yeah. Alrighty, so with all of that out of the way, finally we can get into the benchmarks and see how the system performs. Now, just quickly before we start, something that I need to mention, because I do get this in the comments quite a lot, is that if you have the exact same system or same GPU and so on, our results could differ because of the different hardware being used, the combinations of that, the different speeds at which the hardware is running, memory-wise and so on, could also play an impact. Not all of the systems are going to be the exact same. Also, then there is going to be the difference in the game's settings. All of the games that I tested were set on the max preset. It's not always the best case because you do lose quite a bit of frames running everything on ultra, but this is to show how good the system can actually perform on everything set to maximum. So if you want to get a bit better frames, you can just lower it and then get a better frame rate. But this is to show how good the system can actually perform. So with all of that, let's get into our first test. Alright, so starting off with our 1080p benchmarks, it looked pretty good. The only thing was Assassin's Creed Valhalla, again being on the Ultra preset, lowering the frame rate quite a bit to just under 100 frames a second, again 1080p, but Rainbow Six Siege was all the way up to almost 500 and everything in between. Now DLSS definitely helps out here, and it's definitely going to help out our 4K benchmarks. Next up, for 1440p, everything looked good here as well. Assassin's Creed Valhalla did drop slightly, but everything was still above 100 frames a second. Again, everything set on a maximum in 1440p. Rainbow Six Siege, again, 400 frames there. Call of Duty 222, and Apex at the same. Everything's still really high, so if you want to play at 240 frames, you will be able to do that. And then next up is our 4K benchmarks, where Assassin's Creed Valhalla did drop again slightly to around 50, Borderlands to 57 frames, but everything else was still above 60, and of course Rainbow Six Siege 240 frames at 4K thanks to that DLSS. Call of Duty still 135, Apex 131, everything's still relatively high, and we are getting more and more 4K 144 as monitors, so this system is still going to be a great option for a monitor like that. So then that's it for our gaming benchmarks. Now as for our Blender Classroom benchmark, the Ryzen 9 5900X just beat the 12700K by 4 seconds, but this is definitely quite close, and the pricing difference between the two is also relatively close, with the 5900X going for around $400 and the 12700K for around $350 or $375. And then for our Cinebench R23 benchmark, the Ryzen 9 5900X just lost against the 12700K. Now the 5900X does have a bit more cores compared to the 12700K, but the 12700K does clock higher thanks to that performance cores, and especially in the single core performance, it does do better, but still 24 threads for the 5900X is still really good. Now then, getting into temperatures for the CPU. Now thanks to the high airflow, the half case, temperatures are kept in check. Now of course we have the 360mm rad with 5 fans are kind of connected to it. It does keep it to under 80 degrees, and this was with the ID64 Extreme test, testing everything on the CPU, which is a bit overkill. Most applications won't stress your CPU that much, but again, this is just to show the extreme and how good the cooling will be on the system. And then lastly, for the GPU temperatures, luckily because of all of the fans inside the case, it does keep it quite cool, never going above 70 degrees, with the fans ranging between like 60 to 80% on the most extreme benchmarks, but usually ranged around 70. Again, not bad, 70 degrees, 70% fan speed, keeping it nice and cool. Alright, so that's pretty much it for our build of the crazy half 700 5900X 3080, what, 12 15 fans, I can't remember. It's just a ton, and it's honestly such a great case. Like I mentioned in the video that I did about the case as well, it's been a really long time since I've actually enjoyed building inside a case. So kudos to Cooler Master for building a case like this, and just so much customization and mounting options and everything. So, and then also the mirror there actually does look pretty cool as well. But again, anyway, that's pretty much it. I do hope you guys enjoyed it. All of the products will be linked in the video description, taking you to my website because it's just way too much with all the to-buy links and everything like that. A big shout out to Cooler Master and Gigabyte for supplying all of the parts. And again, if you want to see this system for yourself, you can go check out a Cooler Master store in Sanson. I'll leave some information in the description below, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will check all of you next time. Cheers, guys.